And hello, thank you for joining me. This is a short demo on the ArtRatio Dashboard. This is an online tool to help collectors and institutions and retailers to display fine art and luxury items sustainably, and by that we mean in a set of conditions which allows you to display them both today and in the future. And we do this by looking specifically at the risk of deterioration. It's a function of the materials. So let's jump straight in. And in the first section, what we have to do is type in the materials on the object. We're just going to pick one, and you add it to the list. You'll see here that particular material has been added. You will see also that the material sensitivities have already been updated automatically because silk is not especially sensitive to temperature, so it's low. It's neither humidity, but it is very sensitive to light. And we get this information from the British Standards document PAS 198, but you can override these values at any time. What you'll also see is that the environment variables, the maximum and minimum, have also been updated. For temperature, RH stands for relative humidity and illuminance. And also the overall exposure has been updated to 15,000 lux hours in a year. So all we have to do now is type in the actual values for temperature. Let's say we have 21 degrees C and we have 45% relative humidity. And let's say we have 90 lux. So where are you getting these values from? Well, either you already have a sensor network in place, typically if you're an institution. If you're a private collector, or a retailer, you would need to go and buy some temperature, humidity, and some light probes, and they will give you the values. Alternatively, of course, you can think about our flagship product, which is the ArtRatio display battery. Let's ignore the display section for a second, come straight down to the main section, which is dashboard, and click update. You'll see that the dials then immediately spring into life, giving us color-coded visual feedback on the temperature. You can see that we're in the green here, which means that we're safe. The same thing for humidity, but of course the illuminance is a little bit high because we typed in on purpose a value of 90, knowing that the maximum was 50. What you can see here, though, very notably, is that the exposure is way off the grid. So where do we get this value from? Simply by multiplying the light by the time on display. And that was a default value of 3,650 hours per year, which you can see is 10 hours per day multiplied by every day of the year. Okay, so the exposure is something we need to think about. Visibility is very good in this case. By visibility, we mean photopic visibility, which means that the details and the colors on the object will be very visible because you have enough light shining on the object and the object is reflecting enough light back into the user's eyes for you to be able to distinguish these colors and details. Notably, of course, the risk of damage is very high. In fact, it's 100%, indicating that we need to do something about this. So what should we do? Let's try to reduce this, the maximum illuminance down to 50 lux, which is the maximum value. Come back down to update, and let's see that we should see the exposure dropping and maybe the risk drops. Let's see what happens next. The exposure drops, the visibility drops, the illuminance drops. We're now in the green, but we're still off the grid, so that's not good, and the risk of damage is still extremely high. So what can we do next? If we can't change the light levels, we can change the amount of time on display. So we had 100% display, which means that it's on display all the time. So that would be relevant if you're an institution, for example, you have a permanent display, or if you're a retailer where your objects are on display literally all the time. So let's say that we can reduce this from 100 down to 10%, which means that either you're rotating your objects off into storage or you're somehow covering them up when nobody's nearby. Okay, those are things that you can achieve, of course, if you have a smart glass vitrine from ArtRatio. So let's see how that would actually affect things. Well, you can see now the risk of damage has come straight down to 18%. That's good. The visibility is down slightly, but it's still very much in the green. which means that there should be no problems seeing the colors and details on the object, but the exposure is still very high, still off the grid, in fact. So another way of trying to do this is by reducing the time displayed even more, and let's now try to bring it down to 5%, so it's only going to be visible to people 5% of the time. Okay, let's see what effect that would have, and if you click on update, now you can see the exposure is within limits, so you're in the green for all of the dials, including visibility, including risk, which means that the risk of gradual damage is quite low. The damage that could be through light exposure is relatively low, because you can always try to bring it down even further. The visibility is still high, which means that if you're selling objects or people trying to learn from your collections, they should be able to see them. Okay, that's the end of this short demo. We'll look at all of the other factors regarding reflectance and other aspects of this tool in later webinars. So I hope to see you on those webinars. Thank you very much. See you soon.